Hello, I'm just going to do a video because I've got some spare time. This is just me talking about or waffling on about PCs, the good and the bad, things to look out for, is it worthwhile getting into, and other such things. I'll try and keep it basic. I'll not go off on a tangent, but I can't guarantee that. So, first two things, budget. Your budget is going to be one of the main things where you'll decide on what kind of PC you're going to get. And the other thing is what kind of PC do you want to get because of what you want to use it for. There's usually four main areas, which is going to be the low end, which you're just going to be doing very basic things, like maybe doing some typing or internet browsing, maybe watching films, media sort of stuff. Then you've got your kind of mid-range, which you'll play some of the more basic games that are not very graphically demanding, and you'll also do the media thing. Then you have your gaming rigs, which are designed more so to do your media stuff, but really they're focused on playing the games. And obviously it's going to be your gaming console as such. And then the last one, you have your creator, which is going to be people who maybe do all the other things, but they're more so focused on like 3D rendering, stuff like a workstation where they need multitasking and other such things. Case-wise, this is the Phanteks NV7. This is a mid-tower, but it's a tall mid-tower. Most mid-towers go to probably about there, roughly. Usually same kind of length, maybe a little bit shorter, but this is what you would call an oversized mid-tower really. You have your full tower, which will be even a little bit higher and maybe just slightly longer. Some of them can get ridiculously big. And then you have like your mini ATX cases, which little dinky things usually come to about here or something like that. Those are for people who have not much space, or you maybe not putting too many graphically demanding or any kind of parts that are going to really heat up. Yes, there's people out there that do silly things like putting massive graphics cards to show off what they can do build wise, all very impressive, but it's not very good for the heat. You don't want to be doing that. Ideally, I would recommend to people to get the mid-tower case. They're not too big, they're not too small, they're good to work in, there's plenty of room to maneuver your stuff around and things like that. So that's ideally what you want to go for. If you're, say, heavy-handed and you're obviously a giant of a person and you find trying to get things slotted into areas that's maybe not particularly great for yourself, you could get a full tower. They have a lot more room to move in and obviously build in and such, but they do take up a lot of space. And the other problem is once you put your parts in, if you have a one which has an open view like this one, some of these parts will look very lonely in there because there'll be so much space. But anyway, I digress. So once you've got your case, one of the things to check case-wise is your USBs. You'll have them either at the front or they'll be up here on the top where the power button kind of thing is. On this one, it just has two at the front. Ideally, I would like three. Main reason for that for myself is that I have the wireless adapter for the keyboard and for the mouse, but I would also like one where I could just stick in a USB for whatever reason I need to. So I personally would like one with three. Four, great, but ideally three. That's what I aim for, but not with this case. It just saves you having to go around the back and start using the USBs at the back and stuff. Like I said, they'll either be on the top or the bottom when you're looking at your cases. As with any part, read reviews, and not just from one place. Ideally, 2 or 3 places. Reason for this, unfortunately, these days is that a lot of YouTubers get sent parts for free or on loan. They review it, they get views, they make money. The company obviously gets free advertisement, makes money from it as well. So some of the reviews are a bit favourable and they don't point out some of the bad stuff. It's really hard to find people that will actually say what needs to be said. So yeah, have a look at a few reviews. Especially the more money you spend on a part, the more you need to look around. Right. After that, you have your main power, which is a thing called a PSU. You can't see it on this one, but it's a box. It's usually about from there to there, yeah, big, and it has lots of different slots on it. Now mine is behind, and depending on the case, it'll be at the bottom or be at the top. With this case, it's at the top. Most of them tend to be at the bottom, hidden away. Sometimes with some of the cases, they'll actually be at the front on the side, and you'll actually see them on the side, or they'll be hidden away on the side. It'll depend on the case, really. As to which is better, not something which I've really looked into. I'm sure there's people with their own ideas as to which is better. You could say that any heat generated from it'd be better if it was near the top, because heat rises and heat comes from the bottom, but I don't think it makes that much of a difference, to be honest. The PSUs will come in a variance of different wattages. Depending on how much power demanding parts that you're going to put into your PC will depend on the kind of PSU that you want. So if you're going to put in lots of power demanding parts, you're going to need higher ones like 800, 850 watt, 1000, 1200, 1500. You can go quite high on them. But again, those are like, say, on the high end. The lower ones, that is something which unfortunately I can't really advise on, because I don't know what the parts that you're going to put into your machine. Certainly if someone says, oh, I'm going to put this in, put this in, there is, and I'll leave it in the description, there's what you call it's a power kit calculator. The good thing about it is you can put in all the parts that you want to buy, and it'll give you a rough idea of what kind of power you want for your PSU to run those parts. Now, with the PSU, the one thing I will say is that out of all of the parts in your PC, that's the one that you want to aim to get a little bit more than what you need. The reason for that is that the PSU, in theory, will last longer than any other part in your machine, component-wise. Some people will give you things saying 5 years, 6 years, 8 years, 10 years. I'm sure there's people out there saying they've had there for 12 or 15 years or whatever. But you'll normally find that your CPU will get changed, your GPU will get changed, your motherboard will get changed, but your PSU will still be kicking. Again, you need a reputable brand, and the one obviously that people recommend as such. So ideally you want to get a one that's a little bit more than what you need, because what that does is that when you come to change your parts, obviously you're going to end up with something bigger and better. It gives you a bit more time to upgrade, because you gave yourself that extra bit of breathing room with getting a slightly better or a much better PSU. In the past, I always used to go quite above what I needed, because I knew that within 2 years something was going to change in my machine. I was going to need a little bit more power, but the PSU still had me covered. That was good that way. So once you figured out that, like I say, I'll leave it in the description if you figured that out. You've got to decide whether you're going to be on the Intel side or the AMD side. And that's for your CPU and for your motherboard. Now, people can fight over which is best. I was with Intel for about 21 years, and then the last 4 years has been AMD. I personally have had no issue with either of them. They've all done what they were supposed to do. I've not had any kind of major issues. I can't say which I preferred, because at the time I bought them and they worked, and I had no gripes with them. This moment in time, I have the AMD Ryzen. It's the 9800X3D, which for now is the best gaming chip. But again, it's more so focused for gaming. If you're wanting to go onto the whole multitasking, 3D render, that kind of stuff, they have like things like the 9950X and other such ones, which are designed for that kind of stuff. Intel obviously have their side of things. One thing that I have noticed is that AMD chips, for the past few years, need less power to run them compared to Intel, and they don't get as hot as the Intel high-end chips as well, which is good because it means that your cooling system doesn't have to work as hard as such. So that's one of my things which I'm more so preference towards as well. But again, people can fight over which is the better one. I know Intel have had issues over the past few years, but again, it tends to be swings and roundabouts with these companies. One will do really well for a few years, and then they'll want to come back with something and do really well, and vice versa and stuff. So yeah, once you figure out that, you need to obviously look at what you want to use your CPU for, like gaming-wise, multitasking, blah, blah, blah. And then you need to make sure that with the motherboard, which is this big thing here, which everything slots onto, is the correct one and compatible with the CPU that you're wanting to get. Not all CPUs are friends with certain motherboards. You need to do a bit of research on that and make sure that they are compatible with each other. They have different, what you call, generations. And the other thing is, obviously, you can't mix Intel chips with AMD motherboard, Intel chips. Don't try it. You'll not have fun at all, I'm telling you. Right, so once you figure that out, your motherboard, which I call your traffic controller, your CPU is behind here, which is my cooling thing, goes onto there, and your motherboard is basically telling where all the things need to go, and it's kind of like controlling everything and making sure the traffic flows in the right direction and what it's supposed to do. Beside it, you have RAM slots. There's usually 4, and you can put 4 different. Let's see if I can get a picture. That's DDR memory sticks and that go in there. So there's 4 slots. There was arguments many years ago about whether it's better to fill the 4 slots or to just use the 2. It is better, from what I have been led to believe for the few years, to use the 2. As for how much RAM goes in there, again, depends on your actual PC and what it's used for. High-end gaming creators, they'll use more RAM and faster RAM. But again, if you're coming down and your machine is, say, like a medium level or lower level, then you'll have less memory and you won't have to worry so much about the speed of the actual memory as well. Now, at this moment in time, I have 64 gig and it's 6,000 megahertz on the RAM, but this is AMD RAM. You can go higher on the Intel side, but again, this is where it helps to do a bit of research as well, and this is probably one of the more complicated side of these things, is that Intel have a thing called XMP, and AMD have a thing called, I'm going to forget it now, it's called is it AXPO or I have believe I forgot it now, but they have their own version. Basically what it means is it's more in tune with AMD CPUs and motherboards, and Intel have the XMP, which is more in tune with their side of things. When you're actually buying your RAM, it'll actually say like on there, like Intel, AMD, which one it prefers. Some, I think Corsair seem to do it on a lot of theirs. It'll actually list both of them, which means that it gets on well with both kind of machines that you're going to put it into. Trying to give an example of this one. There is a thing called timing with these sticks. Not all sticks are the same. So say you were looking at 2 separate sticks on Amazon. One was, say, Corsair, and the one was, say, G-Skills. And both of them were the speed of 6,000. Now, beside there, if you look into the description, you'll see a thing which is the timing, which will normally start something like 28, 32, 32, 40, or 32, 34, 34, 36. And that's what the timing's the latency, and basically how well that memory is going to work when it comes to that side of things. I don't want to go down this rabbit hole up here all day. But basically, the lower those numbers are, the better the timings are. So even though they both got the same speed, say 6,000, the lower those numbers are, the better the stick's going to be. Will you notice it if you've never really been into PCs? Or, to be honest, most people, would you actually notice it while gaming? Most people probably wouldn't notice the difference, or what kind of difference it makes to your machine, or how it runs. But again, if you don't want to go too far into that or start reading too much about it, just take it that if you've got 2 reputable brands and they both say 6,000 or 4,000 or 5,000 speed, the one with the lower timings is the one to aim for, ideally. But again, there's other people out there done far more in-depth videos and explain it far better than I ever will. but just take that for granted anyway, that the timing side of things is something which is a benefit to you. Motherboard wise, this is an ATX as well, which, well, actually, I tell a lie, this is an ATX-E. This ATX is your standard size board, which goes down to about there, down here, and they're a good size to work with. This is an ATX-E, and E means extended, which means it's longer. Sticks about, it's about that much wider, not longer really, it's about much wider than what a normal motherboard is. It just has more things spread out and more room and stuff. I didn't necessarily buy it because of that reason. I just bought it because of the reviews and what I wanted to use it for. You also have the standard ATX, which would be about, if that one ends there, it'll end about there, and these components will be slightly further over. You also have your mini ATX motherboards, and they're little dinky little things. They'll probably go from about there to about there. They're really small and condensed for the smaller build PCs. Again, you're buying the small one because you'll be having to stick to a small case for whatever reason you need to do it. I wouldn't recommend one if you're thinking about using it for the latest and greatest and building up from there. You're buying them for that reason, that you are limited on your space. And after that, you're going to have your coolers. Now, the actual coolers will come in, well, 3 varieties really. You have your standard air cooler, which basically, after you put the thermal paste on, sometimes these coolers actually have like this grey paste already on them, and once you slot them on, with anything to do with your CPU and you're going to fit it onto your cooler, you want to do it what you call thumb tight, so it is like as tight as you can get with your fingers. You don't want to start sticking a screwdriver on and tighten it, because you will snap something. Usually what they'll say, that there is certain tools out there, screwdrivers such, which have got the right kind of torque on them, which means that when you turn them, it goes to the right amount of torque, turning power as such, that you'll need to put onto these things. I personally have never bought one. I looked into them, but I know they're out there. I usually do, which is the normal thing, which is as tight as I can get it, finger tight wise. Now, if you're a strong man, a really strong man, that's probably you need to ease off a little bit. But for most people, you can actually put it on there, like what I would call like really finger tight. Some of them might get a little bit hard to get to once these certain components go on, and when you have to use a screwdriver. One thing I will recommend, if you are going to use a screwdriver, make sure you got one of those magnetic tip ones. Any kind of build in a PC, I always strongly recommend you use the magnetic one, because you're bound to drop a screwdriver at some point, a screw at some point somewhere, and it just saves a lot of hassle, because if they fall in, you can guarantee you can't see it, and you're tilting your case around trying to get the screw to fall out the bottom or do something. So I always recommend, if you're going to use that, invest in one of those. But if you are having to use a screwdriver, either because you don't have that much strength in your fingers or ailments, whatever, just make sure you don't over tighten it. It needs to be on there solidly, but you don't want to over tighten it, because what you don't want to hear is crack, and you've cracked your motherboard or something like that. But yeah, the 2 different types of coolers. You're going to have your air one, which is usually a thing which you clamp on, and it'll have like heat pipes that come off it. And then it'll go to like 2 separate radiator fins, and it'll either have 1 fan on or 2 fans. And they basically, the heat will come up through the heat pipes, go into the fins, and these fans will blow the air that's in your case through it to try and dissipate the hot air. And then either your rear fans or top fans, whatever, will take the warm air out. And that's like the air one. The other one is the AIO, which they have, they clamp on there. Most of them have a pump inside this part here. Mine's actually in the radiator. And what that does is it spins, and the liquid inside these tubes, it takes the liquid out, goes up to here. These fans at the top are blowing air up and blowing the warm air out. Hopefully the liquid cools down a bit while it's in here, and then it comes back down the other pipe, goes into there, and repeats again. And that just goes around. They work extremely well, most of them. Noise on them is usually pretty good. And I obviously they look better as well. You can get them with these fancy screens and stuff. And I've been using them for about 10 years now. I would never go back to anything else. I love the whole AIOs. All of them have really done kind of what they're supposed to do as such. This one at this moment in time is working extremely well. I'm happy with it. And the other way of cooling it is the whole water system. Now, it looks nice, and I've always wanted to do something like that, but I take my PC apart way too many times. It would just be a nightmare for me. With those kind of things, ideally, you would build your PC, you'd put that on there, and you wouldn't be dismantling or touching anything in your PC for a long time. Whether it be a year, 2 years, I don't know. But it's not something like you would tinker around there a lot. Mainly for the reason for that is you have this pump that sits over here. You maybe have a radiator on the bottom, a radiator on the top. You have all these fancy tubes going here, there, and everywhere. You can put colourful liquids in there. It's kind of like Pimp My Ride, but for PCs. It looks very nice and it's very flashy, and it cools extremely well. But again, it's a bit nerve-wracking because you're having to do all this piping. There's the whole thing of a lot of tubes with liquid here, there, and everywhere. It's, again, you've got to have time and dedication. If you have a problem, to like strip it all down, drain everything, and put it all back together. It's, I say, it looks nice, but you've got to be really passionate about your PCs and have time as well. But I've never gone down that path. Next, well, we'll leave the GPU to the last thing. Fans. This is overkill. This case has got a crazy amount of fans. Your fans come in, well, there's kind of 3 varieties as such now, spec-wise. You have your airflow. Those blades tend to be more steeply angled, like that, when they're going round. They're designed to push as much air as they can. You then have static fans, where the blades are a bit more shallow. They're designed to push air through narrow spaces. And then you've got some which are kind of half and half, where they're kind of like jack of all trades, where they're not the best at airflow and they're not the best at static, but you can kind of use them in most places. That's what these ones are. These are Phanteks D30. They're not the best airflow, they're not the best static, but you can use them for both, and they do a good job at them. What you tend to have is airflow at the front, airflow at the back, taking it out there. You might have airflow on the top as well. It depends on the case that you have to get the air out. Now, if you're using them and you have lots of filters or lots of parts in front of where the fans are going to be sitting, or you're using them on an AIO where there's a radiator where it has to push the air through like narrow spaces, all the little fins, you need static pressure fans. You can stick on some airflow fans onto this and put them on high speed, and all that happen is, because there's no static pressure, is the air will go, some of it will come back out, it'll scoot out the sides, it just won't work right. Now with static, you could literally run them at half the speed and it would shove all the warm air out. It's just physics, just the way the static pressure fans work. So they're designed to push air through narrow spaces and gaps and perforations and things. Sometimes you might have to stick something like that even on the bottom. You would be thinking it'd be airflow, but depending on the case, you might have to go for a jack of all trades kind of one, because it might have like 2 layers of dust filters and other parts in the way, and it's just hard for an airflow fan just to pull the air through. Again, that'll depend on your case, but 9 times out of 10 you tend to have airflow fans bringing the air in there, the bottom, out the back, and you tend to have static on your CPU cooler if you've got one of the ones that fit on there, because it wants to push it through the fins, and on your AIOs because it wants to push it out as well through the radiator. Your fans should last you quite a while. Again, reviews, shopping around as such. Unfortunately, if you're going to go with the fancy lights and stuff, they usually are a bit more expensive than just say like a plain black or a plain white. And again, the other thing with that is, depending on your case, if you've got a case with a metal side and you can't see anything inside, you don't necessarily have to worry about getting ones with all the lights on and stuff. Again, with having this on the glass on the side, you might want something that's a bit more showy, which is kind of what these are. Don't always believe that you're getting a bargain with these cheap Chinese things. Read the specifications. It'll normally say like, oh, it'll do this for noise, it'll do this for static pressure, and it'll do this for airflow. Now the airflow, it's ideally you're looking for things, say 120 millimeter fan, you're looking for figures like 67 and 70s for the airflows. Static pressure, what I would class as a decent static pressure fan, would be something like 2.8 or going into your 3s. I can't remember the actual measurement of this thing now, but if you actually look at the reading, the problem is, it's just even just the other day I was looking at some of the fans on Amazon. All these Chinese companies, they look really smart and the price is really good on them, but if you look at the specifications on them, the airflow is not bad. It was like, say, like 67, 68, and the noise is kind of what you expect. But if you look at some of them that they're trying to sell as static pressure fans, and it's only like 2 or a 2.1 or something, they're useless. Again, I don't want to go off on that thing, because it can be explained by somebody better, but there's lots of good reviews out there that will demonstrate with their setup and different things in front of them what a static pressure fan is and why it can do what it can do and how it does what it does. But yeah, static pressure for forcing out and through fins, airflow fans for bringing cool air in. GPUs, right. This is the RTX 4090. This is NVIDIA. There is 3 companies, but you can maybe disregard Intel at this moment in time. I hope they change things around and they get things on the move and become a big company and like on the GPU side of things, because the market could do with a shake-up. Unfortunately, NVIDIA, the company who make this one, is too far ahead. And it's making life difficult out there for other companies, and it also means that technology stagnates when one company's got more control than the rest of them. But yeah, so you've got Intel, which are new to the scene, which the prices are good, but it's still early days and it's still taking baby steps as such, as for how those cards work. AMD, which tends to be not quite up there with NVIDIA as to performance wise, but their prices tend to be cheaper. And then you have NVIDIA, which is the market share owner, it's like 80% or whatever it is. They tend to bring out the cards which tend to be a little bit better than AMD's, but then they normally have something where they have a new bit of tech, whether it be ray tracing and other such things, which seems to be a bit ahead of where AMD is on their tech side of things. But NVIDIA's just got so much money, it's insane. It's hard for AMD to even compete or keep up. But AMD, as of, I think it's the 9700 X ones, the new cards has come out with. That is a really good card for the price. And at this moment in time, NVIDIA's having a hell of a time with its drivers. Now, drivers are the programs as such which make your components work. You have them for your CPU and you have them for your motherboard, or that's called a BIOS. But the actual drivers that make these graphics cards work on the NVIDIA side with their new cards is plagued with issues at this moment in time. But I digress. So yeah, you've got Intel, which maybe do a bit of research on and maybe not venture down that path unless you have to. AMD, which is the more reasonably priced, and you've got NVIDIA. RTX 4090, there is a 5090 out now, which is a bigger card. It's slightly more chunky, slightly longer, and it's more powerful than what this one is. Camera keeps going out of focus. As for smaller ones, you can get them. They'll come smaller, down in size, depending on which one you're buying. Most kind of like standard mid-range cards will probably be about half the length of this one and half the thickness of this one. You'll notice with this connector on here, this is one of the new connectors, but with the old one they had what they call 8-pin, Some graphics cards don't even have any, but they're usually really low powered, and they're really basic. Most of them will either have 1 or 2 8-pin connectors. I think it was the RTX 3090 Ti had 3 8-pin connectors, and then they moved on to this new system as well. A lot of people like the 8-pin connectors. These are, again, I don't want to go down that path, but not everybody likes these things and what's happened with them in the past. But with the actual PSU that you buy, one of the things that you need to check as well is on the PSU, it'll have lots of different sockets that you'll plug in, which will be to control the power for your motherboard and for other components. But there'll also be one on there for your GPU. Now, ideally, you want one with at least 3 8-pin connectors, or one of these new connectors, depending on what GPU you're buying. Because what you don't want to do is obviously to buy one of these latest and greatest cards, but the PSU that you've got hasn't got one of these new connectors. It's got the old 8-pin connector, and you're going to have to start fiddling around with things. So you need to make sure that when you get your PSU and your GPU, that they are compatible with each other for the connectors that feed into each other. So, right. So, yeah, the less demanding ones will need less of these. Like I say, hopefully things are going to change, and this is going to change again, and they'll rectify the issues I have with this thing. Now, your GPU is responsible for how, well, the basic terms, how pretty things can look on the screen. Your bigger, more demanding GPUs can make your machine look better than games consoles, and it'll look really nice and everything else, all the bells and whistles. As you come down in price with your GPUs, you can expect obviously the quality and the standards that you run your games at to drop down as well. But the one thing to take into account, like I said at the start, where it's down to the weakest link, is that it's no good sticking in there the most powerful GPU you can get your hands on afford, but then stick in a basic CPU, because it's going to fall upon the CPU. Because the CPU is what's sending information about how things should be, and then your GPU is making it look the way it should on your screen for you. And vice versa. What you don't want is the latest and greatest CPU, but then you're just sticking in like a mid-range GPU. You're not getting obviously the best out of it. Now, if you were to stick in, say, like a really high-end CPU, and you're just getting a basic GPU, but your intention is within 6 months or a year that your plans are that you're wanting to, you know you're going to get a better GPU, you could do that, because it just means that when you put the GPU in, your CPU is ready to go. It can now stretch its legs because you've given it a better GPU. Same could be said the other way around, but it just seems a bit silly to buy a high-end GPU if your CPU can't give it enough information fast enough. But I know, it's me going off on one. As for other things to look for, or look out for as such, one thing I'll say as well is if you are going to get like a tall mid-tower case or a full tower, is the cables that come with your PSU, make sure that they're long enough. Some of them, depending on how the case is laid out, the cable has to stretch from the PSU, whether it be at the bottom, whether it be at the top, and they have to reach the components that you've got there. What you don't want to do is buy yourself like a full-size thing and then come to the thing and then go, oh my god, it's like that short, I can't reach the GPU. There is different holes, and most decent cases will have different holes in different places where you can normally thread things through and make them fit. But I think there was one case many years ago I got, and it would not fit. I had to go out and buy new cables, custom cables, because they were just not long enough. It was a full tower case a long time ago I got. Right, trying to think of anything else on there. Fans, GPU, memory, CPU, coolers, covered onto there. To be honest, I think that's about it really. It's really just the basics as such. It's just me waffling on, killing a bit of time. But again, if people have any kind of questions and stuff, I have some knowledge. There's other people out there who make me just obviously look really, really silly, but I don't mind helping people. I've spent probably just as much time tinkering with PCs as I have playing with them. Unfortunately, it's not something which it's always been a pleasure, but when they do work, I've had a lot of fun with these things, and I have gone back to consoles now and again, but I tend to find that because I quickly switch between gaming or maybe writing and then maybe doing some kind of browsing thing or watching a film, because you can do that so quickly with your PC, it's easy just to have that because it's like everything under one roof. Whereas a console, I might do gaming, then I have to turn it off, then go to PC to do something else. Think, oh, I want to do a bit, turn it off. But with a decent PC, you can kind of just do everything on the fly as and when. Yes, it's more expensive because of the components, especially if you're doing on the more high-end gaming. There's more money to fork out on that side. But if you use websites like CD Keys, that's where you can recoup some of your money. Because instead of paying like your 50, 60 pounds for your games, you might pay like 25, 30 pounds for a game instead. So you can save some money that way. It's again, you don't have to use, there's other websites out there, but I've used CD Keys for years, and they've been spot on. I've never had any issue, and some of the prices on some of the things have been ridiculously good. More so if the game has been out for a few years, you'll go onto Steam and see they've still got the cheek to like try and charge like 30, 40 pound for a game that's like 3 years old. And sometimes you can go on to like CD Keys and see like they're selling games for like 4, 5 pound, and it's like, okay. I will buy that just randomly and tuck it away and leave it on the Steam account, and one day I might play it. And it's not the end of the world if you just play it a bit and then don't finish it as such. Whereas if you're paying full price, you feel like you have to finish it. And my lifestyle, I have many games I've started and not finished. But at this moment in time, I'm doing, I'm trying to separate the time from Oblivion and Expedition 33, which is a really, really nice game. And yeah, really good so far. Anyway, I think I've covered everything I need to do. I think I've just waffled on and wasted people time enough. So any comments, anybody needs any kind of point in the right direction as such, I will try. Anyway, bye. And like any good Marvel film, here's the footage at the end of the credits. I knew I was going to forget something, and I did, and it was storage. Storage is where you're going to keep everything. Photos, programs, games, Windows, where it's going to run from and everything else. There's 3 kind of varieties as such. You've got mechanical hard drives, which are big, cheap, slow. SSDs, which are a lot faster, smaller, a bit more expensive. And then you've got the M.2s, which are smaller, faster, and a bit more expensive again. The higher end machines, you kind of looking at M.2s. Mine's on there, and I can put more down the back of there. If you're going down the path of the SSDs and the mechanical hard drives, they will be tucked away in the back of your PC. The cable will come through and it'll plug into around about down here. The mechanical ones are a lot slower than what the SSDs are. The good thing about the mechanical ones is they're a lot cheaper. You can buy like a massive storage for a decent price, keep all your photos and maybe random things and stuff on there. SSDs just send the information faster, and M.2's even faster still, because it's one of those things that it's no good having these obviously really fast and great if the information you're trying to pull is on a slow hard drive, and it's just everything's waiting for it to catch up, if you know what I mean. They're all playing catch up. So again, if you're doing the high-end gaming, you need to be looking at SSDs really, or ideally M.2s. There's varying degrees in speeds. There's 2 things to look at them on all of these, which is called a read and write speed. And this is something which you can compare and see what they're like. You'll always find that SSDs and then obviously M.2s are faster than each other, and they read faster than each other. The read speed, as is what it says, it's how fast it takes information from there, and the write speed is how fast it can actually write new information onto that storage. So whether it be transferring photos, transferring files, whatever it is, it can even be how fast it can install games that you may be downloading as well. So those are two things which can play a part in your decisions what you're going to make as well. And they come in a varying degree of storage sizes. You'll find, like I say, the mechanical hard drive slower, more noise, take more space, but you'll be able to buy one that's 2 or 3 times the size in storage compared to the same price for, say, an SSD, roughly. I'm just, spitballing and such. So yeah, that was one of the things I missed out on as well. So the storage. I knew I was going to miss something, and so I'm just going to have to tack this very professionally on the end. Bye.